just going straight up to the line of scrimmage, kind of a no huddle. It's a hurry up offense, and then they get down there and score quickly. Why not do that all game? You used to see it with Jim Kelly when he was with the Buffalo Bills. What was it called? The K-gun. He just goes up to the line of scrimmage, boom, calls the play at the line of scrimmage. You saw a lot of Peyton Manning do it last year.
Right.
The Packers wait till the fourth quarter to do something successful, and then they still haven't caught on and said, hey, we're scoring a lot in the fourth quarter. Maybe we should do what we do in the fourth quarter.
Isn't this the first year that Sherman is just the coach? He's been the coach and GM.
Yeah, he had his duties stripped.
So it's kind of ironic. I mean, you would expect, if he's just devoting all his time to coaching this year, wouldn't you think that he'd be at his high? Is he bitter?
No. In talking to him and being around him, I think he's kind of the blue-collar guy. He expects this to work out. He expects to keep doing this over and over again, and eventually it'll work out. But it's kind of like what you see on any level. Great coaches end up changing things to fit their players.
Right.
And in a season like this, he has not changed his coaching style at all, and it's not working.
Well, this new GM was from Seattle, right?
Yeah, Ted Thompson. I think he worked under Wolf while he was in Green
No one
Bay.
thought this guy was going to come in and have a 2-7 team at this point.
No.
So do you think he's going to respond by doing something drastic at the end of the year?
I don't think so. He definitely seems like one of those, a conservative GM. But I wasn't impressed with anything he did over in Seattle. I mean, right now Seattle's in a situation where they have a running back in Sean Alexander who's ripping it up with tons of touchdowns. And they should have locked him up a couple of years ago. They decided not to. Now he has a no franchise tag in his contract, so he can go anywhere he wants. And right now he's leads the league in like 17 touchdowns or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
And there's probably no chance that they'll be able to keep him. That's part of what Ted Thompson's legacy is over there.
Oh man, did you want to say something about the Packers?
No, that's fine. I'm just enjoying listening. Honest to God, I feel like y'all are talking a foreign language.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hey, sorry. I'm nothing if not honest. But I will say this, in listening to you guys talk, you in particular, Larry, because you've got that sports lingo down. I've always been fascinated. Now, we're both in the journalism field, but I don't use that kind of flowery language when I'm writing a news headline.
All right.
Where do you learn to say, well, such and such a team spanked such and such a team, and where do you learn that kind of lingo? I mean, do you just sort of pick that up? Do you learn it from someone else? Or do you invent it?
Sometimes, a lot of times you do end up inventing things. I mean, Fumbleooski was in a movie, and sometimes people end up picking that up. Sometimes it just comes from reading a lot of great writers, and then. I think bad writers learn from watching SportsCenter. I think that's it's truly a disease of print journalism now, because everybody wants to say booyah like Stuart Scott on TV and wants to put it in their stories when writing, and it's just horrible. It's not something you can read. But as far as where you pick it up, learn it, I think part of it's just taught. I know I've had great teachers along the way that have just said, keep it simple until I was able to just actually write well. And then they said, now I don't mind you broadening your lead and things like that. I mean, I came out the box just green when I was at the Kansas City Star. I mean, some of the stuff I wrote was just, it was horrible.
Kind of fun to look back on.
Oh, it's not even fun to look back on. It was that bad where they just said, you just need to write who won the game in the first sentence. That's all we want of you.
Right.
And then by the time I left there, it was a situation where I can develop my lead and finally end up telling who won the game in like the fourth paragraph or something. So
yeah, I'm sure it's like writing news. You just sort of learn as you go.
Yeah, and it's definitely who you work with. I mean, because if you have good teachers, then that goes so far. I mean, if you have people that will sit down, and I have a guy now that I work with at the Northwestern, and I'll give him my copy, and he will just circle this and say, this is horrible, how could you write this? And it's blunt honesty, and I really dig that about him, because it makes it so I learn that much quicker. It's not just him trying to be flowery and spare my feelings, because we're not in that field where we should be thin-skinned. We're journalists, and people are going to write all the time to let us know that we're not doing things they like.
Sure. You mentioned sports writers. Do you have personal favorite sports writers?
I find that a lot of the guys that I ended up working with when I was at the Kansas City Star are some of the better ones that I've enjoyed reading. Joe Posnanski over there is great writer. Jason Whitlock, he does a lot of sports reporters. Great columnist. He's more of the controversial guy, and Joe Posnanski's the straight guy, so they kind of, they're the yin-yang of the paper. One of my writers in college, Michael Smith, ended up going to the Boston Globe, and he's now working for ESPN.com. So, yeah, I had great writers when I was in college.
Have you ever read Mike Lupica of the New York Daily News? He's my all-time favorite sports writer. Growing up in New York City in the 70s, this guy would go after George Steinbrenner, and they had Steinbrenner and Lupica had just a legendary battle going on, and it was just fun to read.
Yeah,
well, what other than something like that, though, makes a good sports writer? I mean, what do you like about certain sports writers?
I like someone who tells it like it is in their own way. I may disagree with their analysis, but they're forthright, they're honest. Michael Lopresti, is he a Gannett writer?
Lopresti.
Yeah, he seems to always come up with some clever way of making his point. So I like a little cleverness, I like forthrightness, honesty, hard hitting. I guess we look for that in any kind of op-ed writer, though.
Yeah.
Right, even in
well,
politics.
you know, and that kind of leads me to a question that I did actually have time to do a little bit of research on before this show started taping. Gwen Knapp with the San Francisco Chronicle has admitted that she's lied for athletes in the past, you know, even if that was lying by omission only. And, you know, a couple examples that she gave. One had to do with when she very first interviewed Barry Bonds back in 2001, and she said that she believed him to be what she called juiced, but yet she didn't pursue that. She didn't write anything about it because she didn't have actual proof. And then she also referenced writing about Mark McGwire's hitting 70 home runs back in 1998, and writing where she gave people the impression that he did that all on his own. How do you feel about things like that in sports writing?
I think it really is a thin line because you never know. I mean, you look at someone like Bo Jackson, who was just a beast when he was in at Auburn, and then when he was with the Raiders, just plowed over people. Yeah. And there were rumors that he was juiced up, but you know, Bo Jackson was just always freakishly big. And from what I understand, he wouldn't work out a lot, at least from what I've heard. He was just that good of an athlete. So you can never tell as a writer, and considering it's your job to report basically, I guess, what you see until you can prove otherwise, you can't speculate. You know, if one of those writers would have went after a Barry Bonds or would have went after Mark McGwire and did some of that digging, then, you know, then you would have saw the big piece on the front page of the newspaper or something.
Well, I think the reporters covered up for the athletes much more in the 50s and 60s than they do now. I mean, a guy like Mickey Mantle, this guy was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Throughout most of his career, all the reporters knew it.
Yeah.
But they all covered up for him. Now you have some reporters that realize, hey, I can really make some big headlines.
And that's where it lies, because sometimes it's where you figure out what type of reporter you want to be. Yeah. Because if you want to dig into someone's life like that, then, you know, it's going to take some investigative work. But on the flip side, if you do expose them, how's that affect you talking to other athletes? You know, especially other athletes that know they did something wrong. In which case, they may not want to talk to you. They may not approach you the same way. They may deny you interviews. Simply, it's kind of a give and take sort of thing. And, you know, you as a writer, I always felt that as long as I maintain my honesty with them, then, you know, they will try to do the same.
One more thing about football. Baseball for many years was called the national pastime. A lot of people think that football is now the national pastime. And I think I would agree with that, because it seems like people get excited for football. Would you agree with this analysis that baseball, maybe because of the scandals?
I think more so baseball and basketball and even hockey are lumped into that category where they play too many games.
Well, hockey was gone for an entire year on a strike. Did anyone even notice it was gone?
No, I didn't. But it's lumped in that category. They're all in that category where they play so many games where you just don't care how the season really starts. I mean, it's with football, it's 17-week season, so every game really does count. A team can have a 10-game losing streak in the NBA or Major League Baseball.
Right.
Who cares? They can just bounce back.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Well, let me ask you this then, and this is one of my questions that's going to show my naivete here. Why, if these long seasons are causing people like yourself to really kind of lose interest in that particular sport, why not shorten the season?
Oh, I think because you still have people going to the games. Games still sell out. I mean, you look at Michael Jordan or look at Chicago when Jordan was with the Bulls. Mm-hmm. You knew that they were going to win every game. They had a 70-win season out of 82 games, and you knew that whenever you turned on the TV. When I turned on the TV, I didn't go to a Bulls game or I didn't watch the Bulls game that year because I was pretty sure that they were going to win. But people are still going to go to the games. Mm-hmm. People are still going to go to those away games because they're fascinated by that athlete.
Okay.
Yeah. Although baseball suffered attendance-wise, hasn't it?
I know baseball has, but that pastime aspect of it kind of makes up for it. And the players are opening up a lot more. At least that's how I see it in baseball. Mm-hmm. They're making themselves a lot more open to the public.
All right. Let's talk about some sports controversies. Baseball, we know there's been a steroid scandal.
Yeah.
Some people have been caught, right? Some people have admitted using, like Jose Canseco's admitted using steroids. The criticism has been that the penalties are not tough enough. Recently, we're taping on November 17th. Mm-hmm. On the 16th, I believe, baseball finally approved a new steroid policy, which is the first time you're caught, 50-game suspension, second time you're caught, 100-game suspension, and third time you're kicked out of the league.
Yeah.
But you can apply for readmission after 3 years. 2 years or 3 years?
2 or 3 years.
2 or 3 years. Now, Bud Selig, the commissioner, former owner of the Brewers, has said that this is the toughest policy in pro sports. Is that accurate?
I believe so, but why not do it a long time ago is my only problem with that. Major League Baseball realizes they have a lot of kissing up to do to the fans, to the game. I mean, it was disgraceful, the way players, that home run deal with McGuire mm-hmm. and Sosa. I mean, who knows what really went on, but you don't see anyone hitting 70 home runs this year, do you?
No. Well, see, I don't believe that the policy's tough enough. I mean, they have the gall to call this a zero tolerance policy, but in fact, it's not. If you're making $1 million a year as a baseball player and you get caught, your 50-game suspension is almost like a little vacation during the year. Even if you get docked your salary for 50 games, you're still doing, I don't even know if they do that, but you're still doing pretty well, and you come back the next year.
I'm a big Pete Rose fan, love the way he played the game, love the way he coached. He's not allowed in the Hall of Fame because he bet on baseball, which I guess is the cardinal rule or whatever. But baseball has had so many black eyes over the last couple of years. They still have the gall to not let Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame, considering, all these things that are going on with steroids, going on with Balco, congressional hearings, and they still think that they're coming up rosy for some reason. And now they're forced into making this change. They're forced into it by Congress, and they're like, "Oh yes, this is our big stance."
How about Rafael Palmeri? This was the guy who went in front of the U.S. Senate
and did
the Bill Clinton.
Yep.
I have never taken steroids.
Yeah.
Then he tested positive, claims that he didn't know what he was taking. Now, just the other day, the congressional committee came out and said that they can't prove that he lied.
Right.
That
much I knew about sports.
Right. But now, Palmeri in the past has been talked about as a possible Hall of Fame player. Does this take him out of Hall of Fame contention?
It's really tough to say. Personally, I don't think Mark McGuire or Barry Bonds should be allowed in the Hall of Fame. And it's not that there's been any proof against either of them.
Well, then how can you keep him out then?
Well,
just on rumor?
Asterisks. I think it's an asterisk season for both of those guys. You look at Barry Bonds and Mark McGuire earlier in their careers, I mean, there's no amount of weightlifting that I'm going to do that's going to help me balloon up the way those guys did. So it's really, it's a big argument. You don't know what happened. People suspect what happens. But during those years when these guys are hitting 70 home runs, you know, it's just left with an asterisk on the season. And but on the flip side, you don't know what people were doing in the 50s or 40s when they're making those when they're establishing those records. They could have been doing something then. They could have had some new fin-fangled steroids going on then. Nobody knows. So.
Yeah, exactly right. But again, with Palmeri, he's out of it. When you say?
Here's the other thing that a buddy of mine said. It wasn't illegal, technically, to do this back then. So basically, let's say they were on steroids. They technically didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
The game didn't have a ban on steroids back then. Technically, they didn't cheat. They used whatever they could to the best of their ability to get the best out of their bodies. So it's kind of a two-way street, in which case it's really a tough call.
See, I would have a lot more respect for Barry Bonds if he would. And he comes close to this, but he doesn't want to cross the line.
Yeah, he flirts with it.
But he wants to. He's come close to saying that the steroids are not what produces the home run hitting. That the home run hitting is about your balance and your you have to have some technical skill at swinging a bat. That there are some guys who give them steroids, they're still not going to hit well.
Yeah, well,
so
it's hand-eye.
Isn't that a potentially good argument? See, Canseco was actually making that argument too before he discovered he could make more news for himself by coming out against steroids, because originally his book actually supports steroids.
Huh. Well, it's definitely a lot of hand-eye coordination.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to hit a home run.
No, I'm not.
There's no. You can give me whatever you like. Give me a pill that makes it so that I can gain 100 pounds of pure muscle.
Right. I'm
still not going to see that fastball with the right hand-eye coordination to send it out of the park. So it's there are other factors that go into it. But
I just wish he would just make the argument, because he comes close to it but doesn't actually do it.
Well, here's another interesting point that I guess a bunch of other writers brought up. If there was a pill that could make you a great journalist, it had the capabilities of making you a wonderful journalist, possibly on the level of where you have your own big time ESPN show like Stephen A. Smith or Jim Rome. You're a nationally syndicated columnist. Would you take that pill knowing that nothing would happen to you? Maybe there are some side effects, but for the most part, there's a good chance you wouldn't get caught, you wouldn't get exploited. Mm-hmm. Would you take that pill that could make you take your game as a journalist to the next level? And it's a tough call. It's a tough call for a lot of people because it's almost like a get-rich-quick scam.
Right. But what about the civil liberties issues involved? There are a lot of people that work every day as lawyers, journalists. They could be taking. We know there are people taking all kinds of drugs. They don't get drug tested every day. So what separates athletes?
I think part of it is because it's performance-enhancing drugs.
Yeah.
And it's athletes, as let's say Allen Iverson, he works for he's a basketball player for the Philadelphia 76ers. But basically, he works for the NBA. And the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, well, maybe not Major League Baseball, but they all want to have a clean image.
Right.
And to do so, they don't want a guy who may end up going on a drunken rampage or...
Allen Iverson of the Philadelphia 76ers is actually a good transition to another sports scandal this year. Allen Iverson has done some rap. He's clearly identified with the so-called hip-hop culture.
Yes.
And the NBA this year literally has put a ban on any kind of what you might call hip-hop fashion on the players, jewelry,
yes,
certain types of loose-fitting clothing and so on. Iverson has come flat out and said this is a racist policy, and he thinks it's aimed at him specifically. But obviously there have been lots of athletes. Do you think that the NBA management, why did they do this?
I think they wanted to improve the image of the league. I really do. And I also think that it is a good move because it promotes a more positive attitude or appearance for.
Well, what were they
for young
what was
people.
the management most offended by? What parts of this fashion were they most
I really have no idea, because basically the NBA makes its living off of that hip-hop image.
Exactly.
I mean, you end up having a guy like Allen Iverson, who maybe when he's sitting on the bench and not playing in a game, he'll have on his throwback jersey for maybe Bill Walton or Lambeer or somebody, and the NBA will make a lot of money off of him wearing that jersey that promotes their product. But suddenly they care more about their image. I think it's a good move. You have a lot of kids in the inner city seeing these, I guess, young black males in these outfits that look a lot more professional. And hopefully it translates into something else on a broader scheme socially. But it's kind of a tough. It's really one of those tough ones because.
But isn't it? Don't you think it's a? I mean, I appreciate you thinking that it's going to have a positive effect on the game, but don't you think it's also a violation of a person's rights and a form of censorship in a sense?
I don't think so. I mean, the NBA is their boss. Mm-hmm. I can't go into work with no shirt on and swim trunks and barefoot. I mean, those things are just they're not allowed. There's a degree of professionalism, mm-hmm. and the owners, a lot of the owners at least, they will wear a suit and tie. That's their job. They mm-hmm. come to work mm-hmm. in a suit and tie looking professional. The player should be accountable to do the same.
Okay. But a guy like Dennis Rodman, if he was in his prime today, would they tell him he couldn't? He was dyeing his hair all kinds of strange colors. He had, numerous piercings and so on and so forth. Would they tell him he couldn't do it today?
I don't think they tell him he couldn't express himself that way, but they would want him in that suit, and they would make him wear that suit. But as far as hair and things like that, look at Johnny Damon for the Red Sox. He had the Jesus look with the bush all out to here and all over there. I mean, those are ways athletes, people in general, express themselves. So you can't change that, but when it comes to them being at the office, you can make sure that they're at least they have on good attire.
But isn't the NBA operating from a stereotype of hip hop culture?
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot about hip hop culture that is very positive.
I don't know about that, but it's. I kind of look at the NBA as trying to change its image in a really big way in a hurry. And maybe part of it is they have so many young black men in that league.
Well, yeah.
But when you look at it overall, with the fact that they just had the age limit, and that's mostly going to affect young black males.
Is it that? Okay. Is it that? And this is a sad commentary on the United States, unfortunately, in 2005. The majority of the players are black.
Yeah.
The majority of the people going to the games are mostly white, middle, and upper class.
Yeah.
So is it that the white, middle, and upper class are offended by this? So they're, in other words, the black athletes are having to be situated in a way that pleases the buyer. It's essentially give the audience what they want.
So the league is more or less pandering to the audience?
Thank you. The league is pandering. Is that what's going on here?
I think a little bit of it is that, but I mean, you just want to have people that look professional when you're at work, and when they step into the arena, they're at work. That's pretty much how I see it. And this way, I really think it helps promote a better image for young black males. I mean, growing up, I had my jerseys and things like that. But when you grow up and hit the real world, you can't dress like that.
Yeah.
You can't go into the office with your Iverson jersey on and the baggy shorts. It's not professional. It's not accepted, and it's honestly it's somewhat nice to see it portrayed that way in the NBA.
But isn't like the nonverbal appearance of athletes these days part of what keep? Go back again. Isn't that part of what keeps the interest in the game? I mean, look at women's tennis. I mean, women's tennis now has become like
fashion models.
Yes. But that has made women's tennis one of the most popular events in pro sports now. And don't you think that the NBA now, in putting this corporate image in place, is that possibly going to take away from the interest of the game?
I don't think it's going to take away from the interest of the game. The NBA's, let's face it, the NBA is struggling. There's no Michael Jordan anymore. I mean, and so far, Grant Hill was supposed to be the next Michael Jordan. I think Ron Harper was supposed to be the next Michael Jordan. Kobe was supposed to be the next Michael Jordan. And now LeBron James is supposed to be the next Michael Jordan. That's a lot of people that are supposed to be the next Michael Jordan because the league needs help. They're not doing things the way they were when Jordan was in his prime, dunking on people, scoring 30 a game, bringing crowds to every city he goes to play.
Correct.
They need some help, and instead they have. I mean, you look across in any sport, there's a lot more. It seems like there's a lot more crime going on in sport. Ray Caruth with the NFL, Ray Lewis with the NFL. It seems like it's becoming a little bit more popular.
All right, well, let's talk about the controversy involving Terrell Owens.
Yeah.
Now, what is that all about? He's with the Philadelphia Eagles, or was.
Yes, and I guess he ran his mouth a little bit too much. And they decided, we're going to suspend you for 4 games, and after that, you're not coming back to the team anyway.
What did he say?
He criticized the organization, McNabb, and the coach. And
publicly?
Yes.
He did it like in a press conference?
No. I guess he was no longer giving interviews, but somehow I guess some 18-year-old with ESPN got an interview with him. And then, personally, I don't think his comments were that offensive. He said that something along the lines of, if Brett Favre was quarterbacking the team, Brett Favre would have, they'd be undefeated right now. Things along those lines. He was upset that the Eagles organization didn't recognize his 100th touchdown catch, and that upset him as well. And I don't think his comments were that detrimental to the team, but they took it that way. I think it was more of the straw that broke the camel's back. Personally, I like Terrell Owens. I like his style of play because, let's face it, he catches touchdowns.
But they effectively fired him.
Yeah. Well, I'm not even sure if it's really a firing because technically he still has to be on the roster, and I know he has his appeal going on. And right now they could use some Terrell Owens.
Yeah.
It looks like McNabb's not going to play for a while. I mean,
But they've made it clear he's not coming back to that team.
They made it clear not this year, but who knows about next year? Maybe they can trade him. In which case, you look at the attitude in the NFL now. Last year, a couple of years ago, Keyshawn Johnson did something similar when he was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Just kept talking about the organization, kept talking about it because he wanted to get traded. Next year, what happens? He got traded. Terrell Owens, when he was in San Francisco, kept talking about the organization, kept talking about the organization. And then all of a sudden they trade him. And now he's doing it with Philadelphia because when it seems like if you don't get the amount of money that you feel that you're entitled to, and the organization refuses to give it to you, just keep talking about the organization because eventually they will cut you, and then you will go on to another team and you will get the money that you deserve.
Okay.
I want to talk about, we're down to about 9 or 10 minutes here, so I want to just kind of shift gears a little bit. Talk for a few minutes anyway about, women in your profession who are writing sports, covering sports on TV, what have you. As far as women sports reporters, some of the statistics that I was able to grab said that only a little more than about 15 or 16% of American sports reporters are women. And while nearly every major daily newspaper with a circulation of over 175,000 has a woman on its sports staff, 40% of American newspapers have no female sports reporters at all. It's changing over time, of course, and I think women are becoming more accepted. As a man in this field, do you think it's changing at the right speed? Too slow? Too fast? What do
I look at the papers I've been at, and there aren't a lot of women sports reporters. And I'm also in the minority because I'm a black sports reporter. And looking at the newsrooms I've been at, there are not a lot of either. When I go to cover Titans games, or let's use Kansas City, that's a larger market. I'd cover state tournaments, and I would almost definitely be the only black reporter there, and then maybe there would be another female reporter, but that's about it. And it is a change that's happening, but I'm not sure if it's happening fast enough or not. I believe the last stat that I saw when it came to major newspapers, there are like 5 black sports editors across the country. And that's not a good number. And women are in that same category. The opportunities, I guess, they're becoming more prevalent. They're surfacing a little bit more, but there just aren't a lot. There aren't a lot at all. I think it probably does need to be happening a little bit faster. But on the other side, you have to earn it. You have to earn your job, and just to get the job, just because you're a minority, as in a female or a black male or Asian or whatever, to get that job on that basis, I don't see the point in that. I don't see what good that does that paper or anyone else. You hire the best candidate, in my opinion.
Sure. But as with anything, unless someone is willing to give a person a chance, and in this case we're talking about in a minority status, how will they ever get to prove themselves or to earn it, as you said? Do you think that fans, readers, viewers on TV, what have you, do you think that they don't take women seriously when they're reporting or writing about sports?
I think it depends on the reporter. I know I'm not a fan of a couple of female reporters, but then other ones I think do a really good job. I mean, and it's that way across the spectrum, because honestly, there are going to be white male reporters that have a really nice job covering a pro beat, and they're horrible. And everybody knows it, but it's an opportunity that they had, and they made the best of it the same way that anybody else would. If you get offered that job, you're not going to turn it down because you don't think you're qualified. You're going to try really hard, and then maybe you grow into it, maybe you don't. In which case, I think reporting jobs should be, or at least sports reporting jobs should be done the way it is in the NFL, the way the NFL conducts its players. Let's say you have a running back. That running back isn't any good anymore. He's breaking down. He's not doing as well as he should. And then you have this other guy that's just rising talent. You plug that guy in. And, part of it, I think, is, politics, where you can't just fire anybody anymore. But, if there's someone doing the job better, that's the person that should have that job. Right now, I think it's one of those situations where you end up with reporters that hold on to their job for a long time because, sports reporting is a cool job, let's face it. You get to hang out with athletes. Sometimes you get some free food. And you get to go to the games. A lot of times you get the best seat in the house.
Well, wasn't Mitch Albom a good sports writer and wrote the book Tuesdays with Maury?
Yes, and
the follow-up, yeah.
But he was found to be plagiarizing recently, wasn't he?
I'm not sure if it was plagiarizing. He wrote a column before the game and talked about how two players were actually at the game, and then the two players never showed up at the game.
Right, so it wasn't plagiarizing. He just made something up.
Yeah. In which case he apologized, things like that. I'm not sure what the sanctions they had against him, but he is a good writer. He wrote a couple of good books. And in that situation, I'm not sure how much you forgive him, how strict you are on him. But if it was a smaller writer, because you see about things now with the Jason Blair scandal a couple years ago, the New York Times guy that was just making it up as he goes along, and he was fired. That's what needs to be happening. And, I think that's what needs to be happening in a much broader sense, where if you have someone that can do the job better, you don't keep that better reporter on the bench. You put him in that position where he can succeed, where he can score 16 touchdowns, where he can get 30 points a game.
Cheryl talked about women journalists and the troubles of advancing. With women athletes, hasn't it become almost a travesty at how the women athletes who become popular, it has to be based on some kind of sex appeal? Just the other day I was watching this golfer, Natalie Gulbis.
All right.
She's like the Anna Kournikova of golf. She's going to have her own reality show. Now, Anna Kournikova, right, model.
Yeah.
Professional tennis player.
Yeah,
never
model.
won a tournament.
Yeah, model. We can't even call her a professional tennis player.
Well, but she was on the pro circuit for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Never won a tournament.
She was hot.
Okay. And that's the same thing with this golfer. Now, isn't there something wrong with this? It's exploitation.
Yeah, I definitely think there's something wrong with it. We've as a country, a friend of mine, she referred to, a lot of people as the beautiful people, and a lot of times that's what you need for TV or to succeed in sports. And it is a travesty. It shouldn't be that way, where an athlete who isn't necessarily the best athlete, but is getting a lot more pub. And you look at someone like Anna Kournikova, who just wasn't good, but she was one of the most popular web searches one year because she's hot.
That's the only reason.
Yeah,
and it's why you look at the women's NBA. I mean, it has never really become as popular as I think it should be, largely because there probably aren't enough athletes in the WNBA that they can exploit.
And I think with the WNBA is the fact that it's just not fun to watch. And honestly, I'm a huge fan of women's basketball. I love it on the college level. I love covering it on high schools. I went to a couple of high school games, covered a couple last year, and I didn't have to. But I simply did it because it seemed like they would try so hard.
Right.
But you get to the WNBA, it just didn't appeal to me at all for some reason.
Well, how do they make it more fun to watch? Because I mean, when I've watched it, I've enjoyed it, and basketball is one of the things that I do try and follow. But how? I mean, obviously there may be other people out there with that attitude, but
I have no clue on that one because I know I just can't get into the WNBA for anything. I don't. I mean, you could offer me a free ticket, and if there's like a free
what about
beer
if free
involved,
food is involved?
Yeah, hey, I'm so down for that. I would be down for that then. But outside of that, it'd take a lot to get me to a WNBA game. You know.
Man.
You have one real quick question
No,
yet?
I don't. We're just about out of time here, I know.
Okay. What final thoughts would you have for folks? Because we're down to like about 30 seconds or so.
Read the Northwestern.
Wait, I know.
That is a
Read me.
shameless plug.
You are going to be starting a blog, a Packers blog.
Yes. We're hoping to get a Packers blog going on right now. I'm on PackersNews.com.
Good. Okay.
And then we're also going to try to get a blog going on for the web.
On the Northwestern site?
Yes, on the Northwestern site for the Packers game. So, read me. Read me. Because like Terrell Owens, I don't know if you ever heard him, but he has this great quote that says, "I love me some me."
All righty. Well,
thanks, Larry.
On that note, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you.
I guess what has come out of this hour is I'll be reading your pieces from now on.
All right. Glad to hear it.
And trying to get up on sports. So if we do this again, I'll be able to contribute a little bit more. But no, it was a real pleasure, and I appreciate your being here, and especially on relatively short notice. So thanks again. And Tony, as always, thanks to you.
Thank you.
And certainly thanks to you at home for allowing us in your homes for the last hour. We'll see you next time. Until then, take good care. Have a very happy Thanksgiving if this airs before Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next time. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.